Welcome back. Now, the G20 Finance Track meeting has kicked off today. This meeting meant to bring central bankers together to discuss global economic challenges and forge consensus on the actions needed to build a global economy that is more resilient and more sustainable. The Reserve Bank's head of international economic relations and policy, Samantha Springfield, joins us now for greater perspective. Thank you so much for your time, Samantha. Just paint a picture of the mood at the meeting of finance ministers and central bankers, because the finance ecosystem is really caught in the middle of a political chess game while leaders are navigating their own domestic economic hurdles.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I guess, when it comes to the mood, we've certainly seen a lot of cooperation and participation from all the G20 member countries. So I think that just goes to show, the desire for global cooperation. Despite the political issues that may be at play at the moment, fundamentally the issues that the G20 discusses don't really change. Priorities might change from presidency to presidency, but for the longest time, the overall themes have pretty much remained the same. So, you have a focus on global economic growth, risks and vulnerabilities. We have the international financial architecture that deals with issues around the global financial safety net, sovereign debt issues. We have sustainable finance that obviously deals with the climate issues. And then we have financial sector issues, which deals with matters related to, for example, cross-border payments, the non-bank financial intermediation, artificial intelligence, and what that means for regulation, central banks' regulation of the financial sector. And there's a variety, there's a host of other issues that fall under the financial sector issues, but basically looking at financial stability and how we preserve financial stability globally. So yeah, I guess in a nutshell, the fundamental issues remain the same over time, maybe just a different take from presidency to presidency.
Well, let's actually talk about that. The fundamental issues remain the same, but you mentioned that priorities will change from presidency to presidency. What are we drilling into under the umbrella of South Africa being the president of the G20?
Thanks. So we know that the president has mentioned, that under South Africa's G20, we will have a focus on Africa issues. For the first time, we have the African Union that is part of the G20, whereas previously South Africa was the only African country on the G20. Africa's voice and representation has increased with the African Union now also there. So in terms of the focus that we have, it is very much issues related to the African continent. I mean, I guess, these issues affect all of us. But particularly, thinking about the financial sector, for example, cross-border payments is a key priority for us. We know that in sub-Saharan Africa, remittance costs are incredibly high, of the highest in the world. And so there is a focus on cross-border payments and how we can improve the speed, the cost of these. The G20 has a cross-border payments roadmap. The sub-Saharan African region is lagging behind in terms of the targets, and we hope to unpack, why that is the case. To understand, what are the issues that are preventing sub-Saharan Africa from making more progress in this regard. So there are a couple of technical issues that we will be looking at to try and make progress. We'll be digging a bit deeper into the data to understand where the pain points are, and where are the areas where we can really kind of push for significant progress as we move forward. Also things around API harmonization and open banking, and how we can use that to our advantage. So that's on the financial sector issues. I mean, there's clearly quite a strong focus on debts, and that again is another key issue on the continent. So when it comes to that, it's about understanding the common framework, and creating more clarity around the process of that, so that there's a better understanding of how these debt issues are resolved globally. Also, the global financial safety net is another area of focus, and that relates to the reform of the international financial institutions. In that respect, there is the 16th General Review of Quotas, which the IMF, which was agreed to last year, which has not been implemented yet, but we will be monitoring that in terms of the implementation. And following that, you then get to the 17th General Review of Quotas, which is something that emerging markets in particular are very focused on and would really like to gain traction and move forward on.
I mean, also just what you say in terms of maybe Africa and sub-Saharan Africa lagging in some of these areas. There are inequalities. I mean, it really just emphasizes the inequalities within the G20. And I mean, it would seem that during this time, we do have the developing nations needing a hand from the more developed nations. Is there a clear understanding and a clear support from developed nations to actually provide support for developing nations that have all these gaps to fill?
Yeah, I believe there is. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that we have had such a good turnout with all the G20 countries here, the participation, the conversation. I mean, there's a clear willingness to work together and to understand each other, and to be able to help each other and move forward. What is good for developing economies is good for advanced economies. As for the global environment as a whole, it's important that we are able to collaborate and work together effectively.
All right. Well, we do have to wrap up the conversation there. Thank you so much for that update, Samantha. And really looking forward to the frameworks that are created from this meeting. That was Samantha Springfield, Head of International Economic Relations and Policy at the South African Reserve Bank.